What's interesting to me, 50 years down the road on this, is how important men were into developing these skills. Fathers were just coming into birth when I gave birth in 1970, which meant that fathers saw something that a lot of men, certainly as well as a lot of women, had never seen, which is a woman doing the activity of birthing her baby. Because there was an extremely high societal expectation that all of us take the very first childbirth classes ever offered, which was Lamaze and Bradley method, that meant fathers were learning skills. So every time we went to a class, we practiced the skills, and we went home and we practiced the skills together, which meant that we made a commitment to using the skills together. The skills were the beginning of skills, and looking back on it now, they weren't very sophisticated. Fathers timed contractions, and we were told as women to be in a ragdoll state, which has nothing to do with the tension inside our body. So fathers would lift an arm to make certain we weren't tense. We were blowing and panting, and then taking a deep breath, putting our chin to our chest and pushing. And so fathers' jobs were minimal, and a large part why fathers started to focus when we realized that we were developing something in birthing better is that fathers just sort of woke up and said, okay, I'm going to be at a birth. What can I do to prepare for the birth? And what can I do to help more effectively than what I'm doing? So one of the things that dads realized from the outside was that there was sort of a misinformation about contractions. If a man had been at a previous birth, the woman would often describe contractions in this way. When labor started, for most women, the contractions are not painful, and we'll say that. Yeah, I think I'm having a contraction, not quite certain I am, but I get up and do whatever I want to do, and the guys are going, that's interesting. And then time passes, whatever time that is, however this labor is progressing. And then women start to say, yeah, I can feel it a little bit more. I can feel it tightening up. But I can still go about doing what I need to do. And men are going, okay. And then a little bit later, women are going, I can really feel them coming on now. Yep, having one. Don't really feel like doing too much. I'm just going to stop here for a minute. They stop, and then they go about doing something. And the guys are going, okay. And if you're going to go to the hospital, men are thinking, is this the time to go? If you're going to have a midwife come to your home, is this the time? When you did the internal work, you learn to check. So the reality is this is a really good time to check and get a reference point as to where things are. You should have been checking, that word should, but I think on the audio tape and the internal work, we tell you to check at least once a week, and then as you get closer, a few times, feel the changes, the top of the vagina, because it was pushy, muffy and stuff, and then it becomes thinner, and then you may or may not be able to reach the cervix, and if you could reach it and it was puffy, and then everything becomes thinner, and the cervix sort of becomes flatter to the lower part of the uterus and the top of the vagina. And then at some point, as the contractions work, when you slide your finger over, you can feel that you're inside the cervix, and you can identify the arc of it and say, okay, it's that much. I could put 2 fingers in or 3 fingers in. So if you have a baseline and you can check, then that's good. And the woman can check. You can feel a little bit easier than she can, but women can check. I checked myself when I was in labor. And when the cervix is so far back I can't reach it, I'm not very dilated. When I can feel it under my pubic bone, I'm fully dilated. So when women are going, okay, I've stopped now, most women, the uterine contractions are thinning out the top of the vagina. And maybe the cervix has started to dilate after it has gotten flat up against the top of the vagina. And then women start going, oh, they're getting more painful. And then women start to go, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm just going to sit here and wait for the next one. Oh, it's more painful. I got to focus. Yeah. Stay focused. Then, without skills, they get to a place where it goes, oh, that's. Then they get to a point where it's, oh, not another one. Then they get to a point where, oh, I can't stand it. Oh. Right? So dads are hearing all of this and they're thinking, oh, shit. Right? So what dads realized was that quite quickly you could tell that there was a start and that the intensity went up and that there was some peak that kind of started to get more defined as they got more intense. And when they started to ease off, became clearer, and then they went away. So what father said is, okay, there were 5 phases of contractions, to which we went, yay, because that meant we could use skills in any of those 5 phases rather than just feeling that as long as the contractions were below my pain threshold, I could cope. And once they got above my pain threshold, I stopped coping. Once dads developed the 5 phases of contractions, then you can apply skills at any time. It's usually the peak, the 10 or 15 seconds where it's the hardest, but any of those other phases, the woman can set up her breathing for a contraction. You can breathe with her as the pain gets more intense, really help her focus, encourage her to know it's only a short period of time, help her let go, help her really just let go so she isn't projecting into the future. And this is what you're going to learn in this lesson about the 5 phases of contractions. And you're also going to learn about the bell-shaped curve. You prepared the body and you're working through this VBAC. And you need to know that this is going to be a progressive labor. Women don't know what a progressive labor is. They feel it if they're having one, and they feel it if they're not having one. So you need to understand what this is. If a labor is progressive, the contractions get longer, stronger, and closer together over a 1 or 2 hour period. And just repeat that, longer, stronger, closer together, which means they last longer, they get more intense, and they get closer together. Most contractions end up being about 3 minutes apart, but I had contractions that were 10 seconds apart. So I had a really quick birth, so the contractions hurry along, which makes it harder to cope. But with skills, you just apply yourself. If there is a peak, your baby is telling the mother that there is nothing about her body that is stopping the baby from opening her up, coming down through and out. If the contractions start, and they start to go up, and then they plateau off, then just dribble away, baby is telling the mother something isn't right within your body. That can be internal tension, that's where the touch comes in. It can be her positions, which you're going to learn more. It can be that she hadn't prepared her body, so she doesn't know how to create space. You don't know how to create space. Or her upper part of her body can be bent in a way that bends that baby, or she's in a position the baby doesn't like. And you get to hear this. Fathers heard this. Women don't always recognize this. Fathers heard this. They could hear it. They could hear the peak. They could hear the plateau. And then they can make suggestions based on what they're seeing. If a woman's in a hands, knees position, it's like lying on her belly. Maybe the baby doesn't like that. Get her upright. Wait 3 contractions. See how the baby responds to the new position. If she has back labor and you've been told apply counter pressure, that's making the space smaller. Take your hand off. Do the hip lift. Do the sacral maneuver. Something else. Create space. So you want to know that if the labor does not have a peak and it's plateauing off, you're looking to reduce internal tension. You're looking to create more space inside the pelvis. You're looking to not have the space compressed, not have the body bent in a way so some babies don't like a woman just leaning forward in positions. Some women are told walk in labor. Baby doesn't like it because when you walk, your butt muscles tense up. Every time you take a stride, that can stop that grapefruit from coming down through and out. So in this lesson, you are going to learn about the 5 phases in the bell-shaped curve contraction. In the next lesson, you're going to learn, and you're going to go further in that about how labor has to be progressive. Because with a VBAC, you want the labor to be progressive. If not, if she suffers, meaning she doesn't cope well, or if there are potential issues that could become risks, and those risks can become problems, and those problems may become real serious, then you want that labor to be progressive. You really want to move along. She may not like it. Progressive labors are hard for women to cope with. And when you are skilled, your job is to keep her on track. That's why we're doing this course for you, because fathers develop birthing better skills along with women, and they were not kidding. They wanted to help efficiently and effectively because dads know, and you know, women never forget. They have a fucking memory like elephants. So if you don't step up to the plate, she'll remember that. If you do and you help her, she is going to be grateful for the rest of your lives.